in the stories we tell. If you liked the story, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe to support the channel. Second miss, the carriage is ready. Would you like to change your clothes first? My close maid Bai Ling frowned with concern, urging me. Seeing that I still hadn't moved, she and my other maid Yunqui couldn't help but exchange glances. Today there's a polo match and he will be there too. In my previous life, I would have hurriedly dressed up, applied rouge and powder, eagerly setting off long ago. I pulled the last stitch tight, carefully wrapping up the leather knee pads I had just finished making. Bai Ling's eyes lit up like incense as she immediately asked, "Second miss, are you planning to give this to second young Master Lu?" A few days ago, Lucas Lu had casually mentioned that his knees got cold when reading at night. I immediately rushed to find the best materials to make knee pads for him, taking several nights to complete them. But in this life, I absolutely won't do such foolish things as trying to please someone who doesn't cherish me anymore. No, put it away. Next time when mother sends things to elder brother, include this, I said. After being urged by the maids, I reluctantly changed clothes and went outside. In the carriage, Lunajong sat with her head lowered obediently, speaking in a gentle voice, "Second sister, you're here." I smiled faintly in response. "I'm late, making third sister wait." "What are you saying, second sister? It's my fortune to be taken out by you." She maintained that humble and gentle demeanor. In my previous life, I was blinded by this appearance of hers. Who could have guessed that beneath this seemingly weak and harmless exterior, she harbored feelings for my husband? When we arrived at the polo field, the place was already buzzing with excited cheers. Outside the field, various tents had been set up, and inside, young nobles of genders rode horses galloping about, competing enthusiastically. I found my family's tent and leisurely sat down in the main seat. Luna also settled in beside me. Those who came here were all from noble and prestigious families. On the field, two teams were competing fiercely. I gazed at the young men in their splendid robes riding brilliantly on horseback. My eyes involuntarily fell upon the most outstanding one, Lucas, the second young master of the Lu family. He controlled the horse with his left hand, while holding the polo mallet in his right, looking dashing and handsome. The more I had been infatuated with him in my previous life, the more I despised him now. I coldly shifted my gaze away, suddenly noticing Luna's burning stare directed at Lucas. In my previous life, she had pretended to care about me when I was pregnant, visiting daily to check on me. I thought it was sisterly affection, but she and Lucas had already been having an affair. Lucas didn't care about the child in my womb and insisted on marrying Luna as his concubine. On their wedding night, I was so angry that I went into premature labor that very night. The maids and midwife went to call for help but never returned. I lay exhausted on the bed, hearing the sounds of laughter and celebration from the front hall, alone in the cold night. In this life, I absolutely won't give them the chance to harm me again. I clenched my fists tightly, silently making my determination. When the incense finished burning, Lucas's team won and claimed the prize. The next prize was a Duanxi inkstone of superior quality. In my previous life, wanting to make Lucas happy, I had personally entered the competition, won, and immediately presented the inkstone to him in front of everyone, causing quite a stir. Only many years later did I learn that he never cared about that inkstone at all, even leaving it in a corner to gather dust. My eyes darkened as I told Bai Ling to prepare. I wanted to enter the field. Bai Ling helped me tie the arm guards tightly. I grabbed the polo mallet and mounted the horse. Since childhood I had been skilled at horseback riding, archery, polo and ball games. I won this match easily, claiming the inkstone without breaking a sweat. Under everyone's cheers, I took the inkstone and turned around. I saw Lucas standing with several other young masters. The young masters were laughing and winking, signaling to each other. Some even pushed Lucas, seemingly certain that I would give him the inkstone. I looked straight past them without hesitation. Lucas's face and his friends all showed surprise. I returned to my tent and handed the wooden box containing the inkstone to Bai Ling. "Keep this safe for me." "Yes, second miss." I removed the arm bindings and picked up a teacup for a sip. In the adjacent tent, the young ladies were discussing the handsome young masters on the field. "Which family is that young master in black from?" a young lady in a yellow dress asked. "Which one?" asked a girl in a green dress. "The one standing behind second young master Lu, not far away." "Oh, that's the eldest son of the Lu family. the elder brother from a different mother of second young Master Lu. The lady in yellow was surprised. Isn't he the grandson of General Zun Yuan who joined the army alone? That's right. Haven't you seen him before, miss? The lady in green fanned herself and sighed. His bearing is truly outstanding. It's just a pity his fate isn't very good. After 3 years in the army, he's still just a 9th rank military instructor. I'm afraid his path to promotion will be very difficult. I gently looked over and saw the tall, handsome young master standing quietly behind Lucas. It was Alexander Lu. Alexander's mother was the only daughter of General Zun Yuan. He lost his mother when young, and his father later married Lucas's mother as his second wife. In my previous life, after I married into the Lu family, I could count on one hand the number of times we met. He was 3 years older than Lucas, quiet, accomplished in both literature and martial arts. The only pity was that his character was too straightforward, he didn't know how to flatter, and his maternal family couldn't help him. Until I died, he was still just a 7th rank deputy commandant and had never married. My father was the vice minister of the Court of Judicial Review, and the Lu family held the title of Marquis Wengson, passed down through generations. The two families were old friends, and the marriage alliance went smoothly. By rights, I should have married the eldest son Alexander, but because his mother died early and he wasn't valued in the family, while my mother and Lady Nai, Lucas's mother, were close friends in the inner chambers, they had long intended to match me with Lucas. Since childhood, I had decided I would marry Lucas, who was 2 years older than me. Every day I would cling to him, calling him second brother, and chase away all the girls who wanted to approach him. Who knew that while the goddess had dreams, the king had no heart? Lucas only liked gentle, delicate young ladies. He despised my bold and straightforward nature. He married me only to please his mother, while I naively thought I had chosen my ideal husband. After returning from the racetrack, I learned that father had already left court, so I took the inkstone to present to him. When father heard about the origin of the inkstone, he even teased me. "Why didn't you give it to your second brother Lu?" I smiled innocently. Why would I give it to him? Good things should naturally be given to honor my father first. Father lovingly patted my head. Such a clever little thing. In my previous life, father had fallen seriously ill from anger over the affair between Luna and Lucas. Living again, I've seen through everything, especially those who appear righteous on the outside but are two-faced within. I won't mistakenly give my true heart again, causing my loved ones pain and letting my enemies rejoice. A few days later, the manor held a birthday celebration for grandmother. I sat with my female relatives drinking wine. After 3 rounds, feeling a bit tipsy, I excused myself and left with Bai Ling and Yunkai. I went outside to the courtyard for fresh air to clear my head from the wine. Suddenly I heard voices not far away. Turning toward the moon gate, I saw servants and a young master in brocade helping Lucas walk over. Lucas's face was flushed, his steps unsteady, he must have been drunk. The young master Shen in brocade seemed to find me like a savior, calling out loudly, "Second miss. Second young Master Lu is drunk and wine has soaked his clothes. Miss, could you call some maids to help him change clothes and have the kitchen prepare a bowl of hangover soup?" I recalled in my previous life, this encounter happened when I secretly snuck out to find Lucas and saw him drunk. I didn't care about a maiden's reputation, and insisted on taking care of him. Now I wanted to stay far away from Lucas and had no desire to be entangled with him. Even if he fell down drunk, it had nothing to do with me. I turned back coldly and said to a young servant, "Did you hear what Master Shen said? Hurry and go." With that, I bowed and took my leave from Master Shen and the astonished Lucas, then led my maids away without looking back. If I had known this would happen, I wouldn't have come out here. How unlucky. I was about to return to my room when suddenly footsteps sounded behind me. "Second miss, please wait." The cold voice with a hint of reproach was Lucas's. Hearing such a strong voice, he didn't seem drunk at all. I turned back annoyed and asked coldly, "What does second young master want?" "Instructions." I wouldn't dare. He leaned against a peach tree nearby. Though he had been drinking, he still retained 7 or 8 parts of his clarity. He smiled coldly. "Second miss seems to treat me too coldly. Second young Master Lu, just say what you want directly." I felt disgusted even exchanging an extra word with him now. "Recently at the polo field, second miss has been cold to me." Today, seeing me drunk, you also turn and leave. I don't know what I've done wrong to make second miss hate me so. His words made it seem like I was the heartless one. If I didn't know him so well, I might have mistaken myself for being unreasonable. But what place did I hold in his heart? I smiled coldly in response. Previously, Emily was young and ignorant, constantly bothering second young master. I hope you can forgive me. Now that we're both older and should be discussing marriage matters, we should maintain proper distance between men and women. If second young master has any instructions, please send someone to relay them, to avoid others seeing and damaging both our reputations. My response left him speechless. Second young master, I must return to my room. Please allow Emily to take her leave. I put away my fake smile, turned and walked away. After just a few steps, I heard his cold laughter and mockery behind me. This strategy of retreating to advance is really clever. I couldn't bear it anymore and turned back, forcing a smile. Second young master, it must be the wine talking. Quickly have Shai-Ching bring you hangover soup. Being drunk hurts the liver. Second young master should take care of your health. I didn't want to look at him for another second and hurried back to my courtyard. Retreat to advance. Did he really think he was some treasure? Well, it was my fault in the previous life for not having self-respect, making Lucas think he was heaven and earth. Lucas appeared golden on the outside but was rotten inside. And his mother Lady Ni was also a hypocrite with a vicious heart. Previously, out of respect for the friendship between our families, Lady Ni tolerated me somewhat. But his aunts and female relatives were not easy to deal with. In my previous life, I married into the Liu family and suffered much grievance from them, yet for Lucas's sake, I endured it willingly. In this life, I'd rather marry a truly simple and honest man than step into their den of tigers and wolves. Calculating the dates, I was reborn when I was 15. In a year, I would have to marry into the Liu family and die at 19. To change my fate of marrying Lucas, I must immediately make plans. I have quite a bit of farmland in the suburbs of the capital, dozens of acres of good fields, plus estates and shops, all part of my dowry, prepared by my parents. In the previous life, Lucas spent every day in pleasure quarters and gambled, causing huge debts. Fearing he would be punished by his father, I foolishly sold my private property to cover for him. In this life, I will definitely hold tight to my dowry and use my youth to find ways to make money grow, to have more capital for self-defense in the future. Seeing summer approaching, I disguised myself and took a carriage to inspect my fields and gardens. I wore a veiled hat and walked to the golden rice fields rippling like waves. I had previously sent a letter to inform the steward in charge of the farmland. He was now waiting by the field to take me around and report on the harvest situation. Seeing some farmers catching insects in the fields, I asked if there were locusts. The steward wiped his sweat and respectfully replied. Reporting to second miss, we discovered larvae at the beginning of this month, but can't eliminate them all. There are more and more. I suddenly recalled that in my previous life there was also a locust plague. Thousands of acres of land were destroyed, and not a single grain was harvested. Later I researched books and found quite a few effective methods to eliminate locusts. I then instructed the steward, divide the fields into 2 parts. Flood one side, locusts don't like water. Also plant peas, sesame and other crops that locusts don't like to eat. Finally, have people buy ducks to eat the locusts before they can fly. Once the ducks are fat, they can be sold for money, killing 2 birds with 1 stone. Excellent, excellent. Second miss is truly brilliant. This old man has memorized everything. The steward nodded continuously in agreement. I instructed further. You can also share these methods with other farming households, tell them to prepare early. If a locust plague occurs, the damage won't stop at just my estates. I looked up at my land, just over 200 acres. At the foot of the mountain was another large stretch of good fields, but I didn't know whose they were. Whose fields are those? I asked casually. Reporting to second miss, they belong to a steward surnamed Sun. The steward answered honestly. I heard he's just managing them for the owner. The master probably doesn't want to show himself. I didn't inquire further, took a stroll around, then returned to the carriage. The carriage had just reached a mountain road when suddenly loud shouts rang out. The carriage was stopped. The driver stammered, What do you people want? I heard a rough man's voice bark. Leave toll money if you want to pass. Were we being robbed by mountain bandits? My heart skipped slightly. Bai Ling and Yinqui were so frightened their whole bodies went limp, collapsing on the seats. This time I had only brought a driver and a young servant, the rest were all weak women. I feared escape would be difficult. I am someone who has died once before, believing that life and death are determined by fate. Facing this situation, I immediately calmed myself. I called out clearly to the outside, "Heroes, if it's just about money, this young lady will leave everything behind. I only hope you won't hurt anyone." Hearing my voice, the mountain bandits outside immediately began discussing excitedly. "There's a young lady in the carriage. That voice sounds so pleasant. Pull her out and let's have a look." With that, they began climbing onto the carriage. The driver and servant tried desperately to stop them. One bandit ran to the carriage window intending to lift the curtain. Bai Ling and Yunque screamed piercingly, their hands and feet frantically holding onto the curtains. Amidst the chaos outside, suddenly there came an agonized cry. It was the voice of the bandit who had demanded toll money earlier. Then a deep, powerful male voice rang out, "Robbing in broad daylight. Do you people have no regard for the law?" While I was puzzling over this voice, I heard the bandits cursing loudly, followed by the sounds of intense fighting. Unable to resist, I slightly lifted the curtain to peek out. I saw a man holding a dragon-carved staff fighting 5 bandits. The staff in his hands moved like a swimming dragon, appearing and disappearing, sweeping up and down, preventing any bandit from getting close. They were beaten and scattered. The man turned around when I saw his face clearly. I was shocked and immediately dropped the curtain. It was Alexander. The bandits cried like their parents had died and quickly fled. The driver kept bowing and thanking Alexander, his words full of gratitude. "Thank you for saving our lives, benefactor." I couldn't show my face, so I could only sit properly in the carriage and express my thanks. "Thank you, great hero, for your assistance. This young lady will never forget this kindness and will surely repay it someday." Alexander replied with righteous dignity, "Seeing injustice and lending a hand is just a small effort. Miss need not worry about it. I take my leave." I quietly peeked through the curtain crack and saw him leading an attendant deeper into the forest. I hadn't expected to meet Alexander here, but I didn't know what business brought him here. So I had no time to concern myself with his affairs. The days remaining to me weren't many. Time passed, and each day I busily studied calculations and kept account books. Whenever I had spare money, I immediately bought more land and shops. I knew that 3 years later, the small shops on Whitestone Street would flourish, so I boldly spent money to buy an entire row of front shops. Thanks to income from renting shops and estates, I took a portion of the money for lending, and also accumulated quite a bit of gold. Every day, being busy with these business matters, my heart felt extremely relaxed. 2 months passed, and one day Mother resolutely took me to the suburbs to Peach Garden Temple to burn incense and pray for blessings. Peach Garden Temple was famous for its thriving incense offerings and was known to be efficacious for praying for marriages. Many unmarried men and women often came here with relatives to pray. Initially I planned to find an excuse to refuse, but I recalled that in my previous life, Mother had also taken me to Peach Garden Temple at this time and accidentally met Lady Nai, Lucas's mother. That time, as soon as I saw Lucas, I was like a bee to honey, clinging to him. He picked a hibiscus flower for me along the way while sightseeing. I was moved to tears, thinking he had feelings for me too. Who knew it was just his usual trick? Countless maids in the household had received flowers he picked. But I foolishly thought I was special and pressed the flower he gave me to keep as a memento, placing it by my bedside to look at every day. Recalling the foolish things I did in my previous life, I felt both embarrassed and amused. Unable to refuse Mother, I calculated a plan and deliberately invited Luna to come along. After Mother got in the carriage and discovered Luna was there too, her eyes went round with surprise. Before she could say anything, I took her hand and sweetly explained, "Mother, third sister was lonely at home alone, so your daughter brought her along. Having more people to chat and laugh with on the road is more fun." Mother glanced at me but said nothing more. When we arrived at the mountain gate of Peach Garden Temple, we indeed saw the Marquis Wengsen's carriage. Mother and Lady Ni chatted intimately while I stood behind smiling brightly, but never once glanced at Lucas. My eyes swept past and caught Luna shyly stealing glances at Lucas, making eyes at him. I smiled coldly and calmly followed Mother up the steps. After burning incense, The two mothers wanted to find the temple master to interpret fortunes, leaving us free to stroll around. A young Taoist boy reported that behind the forest was a clear, sweet spring. Many devotees often brought bottles to collect water, and we should go see it too. I already knew about this. That hibiscus branch was also picked in the forest. The two mothers happily told us to bring spring water back. The servants and maids prepared bottles and jars, following each other to fetch water. I deliberately slowed my pace, letting Luna and Lucas go ahead. Halfway there, I suddenly stumbled to one side. Oh dear. Bailing and Yunkui quickly caught me. Lucas looked back in surprise while Luna's face filled with worry as she rushed over asking, "Second sister, what's wrong?" "It's nothing. Just twisted my ankle a bit," I said, fanning myself with a calm demeanor. Bailing and Yunkui helped me sit on a roadside boulder. I said to Luna and Lucas, "I'll sit for a moment and be fine. You two don't need to worry about me." "How can that be?" Luna replied gently. "I'll stay with second sister." If I hadn't witnessed her true face myself, I might have been touched by this concern. The hatred in my heart grew stronger, but the smile on my face became even brighter. "Thank you, third sister, but I'm fine. You all go fetch the spring water. Don't delay. Remember to bring my portion back." I had Bai Ling give the bottle to Luna's maid. Though she said she wanted to stay with me, after hearing this, she pretended to express regret for a few sentences then left with Lucas. Before leaving, Lucas looked back at me several times. I smiled and waved them into the forest. After they went far, I immediately stood up as if nothing had happened. "Let's go," I told the maids who were still staring in amazement. Yunkui stammered. "Second miss, your foot isn't." Bai Ling cleverly nudged her, signaling her to be quiet. I found a rest pavilion and had Bai Ling and Clun prepare tea. While sipping hot tea, I enjoyed the mountain forest scenery filled with autumn colors. About 3/4 of an hour later, Lucas and the group returned. Seeing a fresh pink hibiscus flower pinned in Luna's hair, I smiled and said, "Oh, that flower in third sister's hair is so fitting. It reminds me of the line, 'No hibiscus can compare to a beauty's makeup.'" "Second sister, stop teasing me," Luna said, lowering her head shyly. I didn't ask where the flower came from, just smiled and had Bai Ling use the spring water to make tea. Lucas and Luna sat down to drink tea. I deliberately praised them as being perfectly matched in temperament and appearance, causing Lucas to glare at me several times while Luna became even more embarrassed, her cheeks flushing pink, unable to say a word. On the way back, Lucas suddenly spoke up, "Second miss, may I borrow a moment to speak with you?" I guessed what he wanted to say, probably things like, "What are you planning?" or "What game are you playing?" I smiled casually and replied, "Second young master, just speak directly." He glanced at everyone around, signaling them to move away. I stopped them saying, "You don't need to leave. A gentleman doesn't speak in shadows." Luna and the servants looked at each other while Lucas gritted his teeth and asked, "What are you planning?" Indeed, I knew him like a worm knows wood. I answered without changing expression, "I'm not planning anything at all, second young master. If you just want to repeat these meaningless phrases, Emily asks to take her leave. I cannot accompany you further." With that, I turned and left gracefully. What could I be planning? I simply hoped Lucas and Luna would become a couple soon. When turtle meets turtle, both sides find each other pleasing. A gentleman helps others achieve their wishes. Luna was originally the most suitable person to compose poetry and admire the moon with him. The only pity was that Luna, being born of a concubine, wanting to marry into a marquis household as the main wife was truly a pipe dream. No woman in our clan had ever willingly become a concubine. If she wasn't so arrogant, she could completely find a decent family to be the legitimate wife. I didn't want to concern myself with them anymore. The matters of my previous life were my fault for giving my true heart wrongly, bringing suffering upon myself. I couldn't blame others. After being reborn, I never thought about revenge. In this life, I only want to live for myself. They can do whatever they like, as long as it doesn't affect me. In the blink of an eye, autumn passed and winter came. In less than 2 months it would be New Year. As usual, I went to the pawn shop to check the account books. The treasurer and I were calculating in the back room when suddenly there was a loud commotion from the front. I paused my work to listen outside. The counter manager said, "Young master, the pawn ticket clearly states 3 strings of coins in black and white." That day I even counted it clearly for her to see. "Now you say it's short, Who knows if your old lady dropped it on the road? An angry male voice retorted. My wet nurse only brought back 2 strings and 800 coins. She said you told her it was 2 strings and 800. She can't read, you clearly deceived her. The counter manager wouldn't back down. You say we deceived her, do you have any witnesses or evidence? The man said furiously. The witness is my wet nurse. The money she brought back is still untouched. Now I want to redeem her hairpin. You tell me how much I need to pay. Of course you need to pay exactly as stated on the pawn ticket. The treasurer heard the commotion and hurried out to mediate with gentle words. Young master, please calm down, calm down. Hearing that male voice, I found it familiar, so I peeked through the door crack. The person arguing red-faced with the counter manager was none other than Alexander. Beside him was an old woman with completely white hair, wiping tears while saying, Young master, let it go. It's all this old servant's fault, poor eyesight and shaky hands. We don't need to argue with them. Alexander gritted his teeth but still said, Wet nurse, though the money isn't much, we cannot bear this injustice. Business should be honest. How can they confuse black and white and deceive so outrageously? Seeing the counter manager about to argue with him again, the treasurer once more hurried to mediate. I already understood the situation clearly. Last time Alexander saved me, and I had been thinking about how to repay this kindness. While they were still disputing, I called Bai Ling over and instructed, Go tell Treasurer Wang that this young master is an acquaintance of mine. Tell him to immediately return the hairpin to that old lady. Yes, second miss. Bai Ling stepped out and whispered a few words in Treasurer Wang's ear. After hearing, the treasurer immediately smiled and told the counter clerk to get the hairpin and return it to the old woman. Alexander wanted to give 2 strings and 800 coins to the treasurer, but he didn't dare accept it, only saying this was a gift from our master to the young master. Who is your master? Alexander asked. Treasurer Wang was clever and naturally didn't reveal my identity, just smiling without answering. Alexander shifted his gaze to Bai Ling, making her tremble and quickly retreat toward me. In the end, he still left the 2 strings and 800 coins, took the hairpin, and left with his wet nurse. I couldn't help but sigh. Recalling how Lucas squandered money, going to pleasure quarters and drinking, casually rewarding dozens of taels of silver, yet here was Alexander, the legitimate eldest son of the Marquis' household, arguing endlessly over 200 coins. I didn't know why his wet nurse had to pawn the hairpin, but thinking about it, it must be because they were short of money and needed it urgently. The Marquis' household's treatment of their eldest son like this was truly unfair, making others look down on them. In this life, I felt even more clearly that Lucas was just a playboy. How could he compare to Alexander's bearing? In my previous life, I was truly blind to have loved that useless person. As soon as I got home, Mother sent someone to summon me. Mother asked kindly about me for a bit, then said, Emily, a few days ago I met Lady Nye again. She mentioned the matter between you and Lucas. Hearing this, my heart immediately fell uneasy. Nothing good, just as I expected. Mother continued, I think next spring you'll turn 16, Lucas will be 17, a perfect age match. It's time to discuss marriage. What was bound to come finally came. I took a deep breath and maintained a calm expression, saying, the eldest son of the Marquis' household isn't married yet. If the second son marries first, won't people gossip? Mother used her handkerchief to dab the corner of her mouth, smiling. I also said this to Lady Nye. She said the eldest son is in the military camp year-round and doesn't come home. Even if we wanted to arrange his marriage we couldn't. Besides, you know his situation, which family of equal status would be willing to marry their daughter to him? We can't make Lucas wait unmarried for him forever, can we? I thought to myself, not coming home is actually good. 2 people in different places, not bothering each other. I even hoped my future husband would be someone who's often away like this. While I was lost in thought, Mother continued rambling. Next year Lucas also has to take the imperial examinations. The Marquis's wife says we should find him a young lady to take care of him and restrain his temperament, make him more focused. You and Lucas grew up together and know each other inside out. She'd be most at ease in trusting Lucas to you. Know each other inside out? I laughed coldly in my heart. In my previous life, after marrying into the Marquis' household, I discovered he kept a whole group of chambermaids in his room. Every maid in the household with any beauty couldn't avoid unclear relationships with him. The Marquis's wife managed the household very strictly, and the servants didn't dare say half a word, so outsiders all thought Lucas was just a slightly playful youth, nothing more. After marrying him, to help him focus on preparing for the examinations, I played the villain countless times, dismissing all the butterflies and bees from his room, making outsiders call me a jealous and vicious person. So many nights I stayed up with him studying by lamplight, going through countless difficult days and months. I can't even remember clearly anymore. He struggled greatly just to pass the provincial examination, yet he was arrogant about it. Not only was he ungrateful to me, but he took the opportunity to acquire more maids and concubines. He even favored a singing girl named Shui Xian as a reward for himself. Shui Xian originally had no qualifications to be a concubine and couldn't enter the household, so she became his outside mistress. Later, Shui Xian became pregnant with his child and came to the household demanding recognition. The Marquis's wife beat her with a stick, causing Shui Xian to miscarry, her body severely damaged. She was later sold to human traffickers. Despite Shui Xian's tragic end, Lucas was only sad for 2 days before continuing his all-night revelries, making me realize he was truly a heartless, cold person. Mother was still discussing the marriage, saying that after New Year she would invite the matchmaker to formally propose. I firmly agreed. Everything will be as mother arranges. But in my heart I was secretly making plans. Marrying Lucas would be like asking me to die again. That would never happen. I immediately had Bai Ling find someone to track Lucas's movements. 2 days later, she reported back to me. Lucas went to 100 Flowers Pavilion today, happily drinking with several singing girls, including Shui Xian. I clearly remembered that Shui Xian wasn't a kind person either. She had entangled with many young masters, just hoping someone would redeem her and take her as a concubine to change her life. Among the young masters pursuing her was one surnamed Bai. His family ran fabric shops and was quite wealthy, knowing many court officials. He was an arrogant and wild person, often heard to get drunk and fight in the streets, always using money to solve problems. In my previous life, when Shui Xian came pregnant looking for Lucas and was driven away, she once cried regretfully saying, "If I had known, I would have chosen Master Bai. Master Bui at least has a conscience and would give me status." The Master Boy in her words was that young Master Bui. Very good. I thought to myself, the bait is ready, let's see if they take it. One day, I heard Lucas had gone to 100 Flowers Pavilion again to drink with Shu Xian, so I had Bai Ling send someone to inform Master Boy. That night I went to bed early and slept soundly without dreams. The next morning, I went to Mother's room for breakfast. Mother's trusted wet nurse, Nanny Zhou, rushed in hurriedly and whispered something in her ear. Mother's expression immediately changed as she scolded. "Is this really true? Explain clearly." I perked up my ears to listen. Nanny Zhou hesitated, looking at me. I then teased, "Nanny Zhou, what's so important that even I can't hear?" Nanny Zhou laughed awkwardly. "It's nothing, just some unpleasant matters. This old servant fears dirtying second Mrs. ears." Mother used her handkerchief to dab the corner of her mouth, maintaining the dignity of a matriarch, saying, "Tell the child. She'll know sooner or later anyway." Nanny Zhou stammered, "Last night, the second young master of Marquis Wengxin's household got into a drunken fight with another young master. Unfortunately, someone was injured." Her words couldn't be trusted. I didn't believe the matter was that simple. Was he seriously hurt? I probed. This old servant doesn't know. Only heard that the other young master's family won't let it go and plans to file charges with the authorities. Oh, I acted unconcerned. Mother thought I was worried about Lucas and comforted me. Probably just encountered some ruffians who knew Lucas was from the Marquis' household and deliberately caused trouble to extort money. These matters can be settled with some silver. I didn't think Master Boy would let it go so easily. I just waited to watch the show. The people sent to investigate quickly returned to report the situation. Last night, Master Bui went to 100 Flowers Pavilion and fought with Lucas over Shui Xian out of jealousy. Lucas had studied martial arts for several years and had good skills. He broke the other party's arm. The Bui family immediately escorted Lucas to Kaifeng Prefecture to report to the authorities. The prefect, knowing the one who caused injury was from Marquis Wengxin's household, didn't dare handle it carelessly and temporarily detained him pending trial. The Marquis Wengxin household's reputation was renowned. Even a small matter could shake the entire capital. The Marquis wanted to use money to settle privately, but the Bui family resolutely refused to compromise, insisting on taking Lucas to court. Currently, both families were making a commotion at the government office, neither giving in. At first, my mother didn't take it seriously, thinking it was just a trivial matter. But when the lawsuit spread throughout the capital and the Marquis and his wife had to run everywhere calling in favors, she finally realized the situation wasn't good. What should we do now? Mother asked father. If Lucas goes to prison, won't he be unable to participate in the imperial examinations? My father, being the vice minister of the Court of Judicial Review, naturally understood the inside story. He replied, "Mind your own business and stop worrying about others' affairs." Mother pleaded quietly, "Husband, can't you think of a way to help Lucas? He might be your future son-in-law after all." Father said sternly, "What do you know? Here in the imperial capital, under the emperor's feet, especially at times like this, we must avoid suspicion even more. If I intervene, others will use it against me to criticize." Mother urged, "Husband, true feelings are revealed in times of trouble. Can we really just stand by and watch without helping?" Father said irritably, "Such womanly thinking. If the one causing trouble today was from our Zhang family, would the Marquis' household get involved? Son-in-law, bah. Even the marriage hasn't been decided yet." I hid behind the screen, hearing everything. Father was absolutely right. Lucas's crime of assault causing injury was clear as day. Our family had always maintained a clean reputation and absolutely wouldn't cover up for wrongdoing. Mother still hadn't given up and continued trying to persuade father, but Lady Nai from the Marquis' household had already decided to invite the matchmaker after New Year to formally propose. Emily from our family has always been fond of Lucas. The two children will marry sooner or later. Seeing the opportunity had come, I stepped out. After bowing to both parents, I spoke seriously before their surprised gazes. "Your daughter doesn't want to marry second young Master Lu." Before mother could scold me for eavesdropping, she asked in panic, "What nonsense are you talking about, child?" "Mother, second young Master Lu keeps a group of chambermaids in his room and frequently visits pleasure quarters, indulging in romance. Such a husband, your daughter dares not accept." I frankly exposed Lucas's true face. Mother didn't believe it and questioned, "Who told you these false rumors? You and Lucas grew up together. His character, outsiders may not know, but don't you? Surely this is slander from jealous people spreading nonsense." "Mother, no wall in this world doesn't let wind through. If you don't believe me, you can find someone trustworthy to inquire among the servants in the Marquis' household. I swear under heaven and earth, your daughter hasn't fabricated half a sentence. Second young Master Lu has done quite a few disgraceful things. People in the Marquis' household all cover for him out of fear of Lady Ni's power." Mother was left speechless by my words. Father remained silent. I continued condemning him. He even got his personal maid pregnant, then the Marquis's wife forced her to abort, causing her death. Even if your daughter had courage as big as the sky, I wouldn't dare joke about matters involving life and death. These things I knew as soon as I married into the Marquis' household in my previous life. Back then, I was as if bewitched, everything about him seemed good to me. I even secretly cursed that maid as shameless for seducing the young master, saying she deserved such retribution. Who knew that years later I would fall into a similar fate myself? How ironic. How is this possible? Mother struggled to get out one sentence. Father interjected, "I've also heard about this matter. That maid's family once wanted to file charges but was silenced with money by the Lu family." Mother was so frightened she couldn't close her mouth. Father sighed. "I thought it was just rumors, but it turned out to be true." Mother finally found her voice. But our family and the Lu family have always had good relations. They're already preparing to come propose. If we distance ourselves now, won't we be called heartless and ungrateful?" I quickly responded, "The Lu family doesn't only have Lucas. If the two families want to form a marriage alliance, it doesn't have to be with him." Both mother and father were stunned. Mother couldn't believe it and asked again, "What do you mean?" "If mother insists on marrying your daughter to the Lu family, then let me marry their eldest son," I said lightly, causing both parents' expressions to change. "What nonsense are you talking about?" Mother slammed her hand on the table angrily. "Are you crazy? The eldest son of the Lu family is no different from a servant in the household. Marrying him, won't people laugh at us? Indeed, if I had a choice, I'd rather not marry at all. But in this situation with no other options, marrying Alexander was the best path I could think of. Marrying Lucas, wouldn't that also invite ridicule? I asked back. Since we'll be laughed at either way, I might as well choose someone I find agreeable. Mother was surprised. You actually like the eldest son of the Liu family. It's not about liking or not liking, I answered clearly. But between him and Lucas, I'd rather choose him. Mother couldn't accept that her son-in-law had changed from Lucas to Alexander. To her, this was no different than trading pearls for pebbles, she said unwillingly. Lucas's matter isn't concluded yet. If he can escape this incident, maybe he'll repent and change his character. Later when he passes the examinations and becomes a high official, who will remember these unpleasant matters? Will he turn around? I laughed coldly in my heart. Mother, rivers and mountains may change, but one's nature is hard to alter, I said decisively. Those lacking virtue, no matter how high they climb, will eventually fall. I spoke as naturally as water flowing or clouds drifting. Mother, don't look down on the eldest son of the Liu family, the ancients said. Don't despise the young and poor, he has a foothold in the military. Moreover, he is the legitimate eldest son of the Marquis household. Now that Lucas's reputation is ruined, when the Marquis passes away, who knows who will inherit the title? Mother fell completely silent after hearing this. Indeed, I was just lying with my eyes open. Alexander's path to promotion wasn't smooth at all, but I didn't care. Even if he remained a minor official all his life, I still had enough money to live peacefully without worrying about food and clothing. If he betrayed me like his brother, I still had enough ability to protect myself. Father, who had been silent from the beginning, now spoke up in agreement. The eldest son of the Liu family, though his military position isn't high, his comrades all praise him as honest and generous, a brave general who will surely achieve great things in the future. That's right. Your daughter values his integrity. Seeing father speak well of Alexander, I knew there was hope for this matter. Mother saw the two of us, father and daughter, playing off each other. Though she had many objections in her heart, she couldn't refute them. This matter was considered agreed upon. As for Lucas, he finally avoided prison but was still tormented miserably. He had to redeem Shuishan, personally prepare generous gifts, then bring her to the Bai family. He also had to kneel and beg Master Bi for forgiveness. Master Bai accepted the gifts, humiliated him thoroughly, then finally agreed to withdraw the lawsuit. This incident made Lucas the laughingstock of the entire capital. The young ladies who once admired him all avoided him, causing him to hide at home for a long time, not daring to go out and meet people. After New Year's Lantern Festival, the Liu family finally sent a matchmaker to our house to formally propose. I hid in the small hall peeking, hearing Mother tell the matchmaker, "Marriage is fine, but our family is interested in the eldest son of the Liu family. Go back and tell your mistress, if they let the eldest son marry our second daughter, then choose an auspicious day to come exchange betrothal gifts." The matchmaker couldn't believe her ears and asked several times to confirm. Only when she clearly heard Mother say it was the eldest son did she reluctantly agree and leave. The messenger in the Marquis household quickly reported back to me. I heard that Lady Ni and Lucas, upon learning this news, were so angry they slammed tables and threw things, cursing our family as backstabbers who don't know what's good for them. Curse all you want, but currently the Marquis household's reputation had declined. No family of equal status wanted to marry their daughters to them. In outsiders' eyes, Alexander was even worse than Lucas. Everyone only saw that our family would rather choose the neglected Alexander than marry our daughter to the playboy Lucas. No matter what others whispered and discussed, no one could say half a word against our family. Still, this action was no different than trampling on Lucas's dignity. The Liu family deliberated back and forth and finally agreed to this marriage. Our family received the betrothal gifts, exchanged birth dates, and chose an auspicious day for me to marry. On my wedding day, the red bridal sedan stretched for 10 miles. The entire capital celebrated. Alexander rode a tall horse, looking extraordinary. No matter what happened internally, the Liu family couldn't lose face. Though Alexander wasn't valued, the wedding procession was still extremely grand. The procession stretched endlessly into the distance, drums and gongs resounded to the heavens, red lanterns lit the way. This scene was no inferior to when I married Lucas in my previous life. Firecrackers exploded and cheers shook the entire area. The wet nurses helped me up. I held the round fan and stepped into the bridal sedan. Through the corner of my eye, I glimpsed Lucas standing in the wedding procession. His face was gloomy, his eyes dark. He didn't even bother to put on a fake happy expression. I once thought that seeing him fail would make me gleeful, but now I felt no ripples in my heart. Without feelings for him, naturally I wouldn't be affected by him. I was too lazy to pay attention to him. Through the fan gap, I gently looked at my groom. Alexander wore red wedding robes, dignified and imposing, handsome in appearance. The more I looked at him now, the more pleasing to the eye he became. People often say when taking a wife, choose virtue, when marrying a husband, choose character. Not to mention anything else, just Alexander's quality and willpower alone made me admire him. Even if he only became a 7th-rank military general in the future, I wouldn't regret giving myself to him. On the wedding night, Alexander sat shyly beside me on the bridal bed. Technically I was remarrying. Compared to his flustered appearance, I appeared leisurely and comfortable. I put down the round fan, propped my chin up, and leisurely observed his awkward manner. Unable to bear my gaze, he finally opened his mouth but stammered. "My lady." He hesitated for ages without completing a sentence. I had to speak up to help him out of this awkward situation. "Husband, this phoenix crown is too heavy. It's making my neck hurt." He hurriedly removed the phoenix crown with his own hands. Seeing clear marks on my forehead, he felt distressed and brought his rough hand up, gently massaging for me. Then, perhaps feeling this action was too intimate, he awkwardly let go, carefully observing my expression. His hands were a bit rough. The massage wasn't exactly comfortable, but my heart surged with feelings both touched and bittersweet. My eyes couldn't help but heat up, a layer of mist clouding them. In my previous life, on my wedding night with Lucas, he was drunk to the point of being limp. I had to serve him, help him change clothes and remove shoes. In the middle of the night, he rolled over and pressed on me, his actions rough, not caring about my pain at all. "Thank you, husband." I smiled gently at Alexander. Alexander was stunned, his lips slightly parted as if wanting to say something but swallowing the words back. "It's getting late, I'll help you rest." I reached out to untie his belt, but he gently caught my hand. His large, warm hand completely enveloped mine. "My lady." He looked deeply into my eyes and asked cautiously, "Why did you choose me as your husband?" I knew what he wanted to ask. He was wondering why I passed over Lucas to marry him. After all, in outsiders' eyes, I had been Lucas's shadow since childhood. Who would have thought that at the last moment, I would marry someone no one valued? I answered frankly, "Husband is upright and honest, a true steadfast man. Marrying you is my good fortune." He gripped my hand tighter and asked again, "Was the young lady in the carriage that day you, and the pawn shop owner too?" Alexander wasn't a crude man lacking intelligence, he must have investigated something. "Yes, it was me," I admitted frankly. "So you chose me to repay a debt of gratitude." His voice was low and hoarse, mixed with emotions difficult to read, making it impossible for me to see through his thoughts. I withdrew my hand and gently patted his cheek, saying softly, "It's both to repay gratitude and not." I didn't beat around the bush and said clearly, "Our family and the Liu family must form a marriage alliance. I know your brother isn't someone I can marry. You have shown me kindness and are an upright person. My father also values you highly. I believe you will treat me sincerely." I didn't know if he was satisfied with this answer. After hearing it, he lifted my hand and gently kissed the back, his eyes full of determination. "I will definitely not disappoint my beloved wife." His gaze made my whole body burn with heat. I hurriedly changed the subject. "Why did you appear on the mountain that day?" He slowly recounted, "That day was my mother's death anniversary. On the way up the mountain to pay respects, I saw bandits causing trouble and helped out. Unexpectedly it formed a fateful connection." I continued for him. Alexander blushed at this. I said, "Someday take me to burn incense for your mother." "All right." He nodded, then continued about the pawn shop incident. "That day my wet nurse had no money for medicine and didn't dare tell me, so she secretly pawned a hairpin passed down from my grandmother. When I found out, I took her to redeem it. Unexpectedly, a dispute arose with your employee. Afraid I would misunderstand him as being unreasonable, Alexander hurriedly explained. Wet nurse really only brought back 2 strings and 800 coins. I don't know what misunderstanding occurred, but when I learned she was deceived, I lost my temper and spoke rashly. I nodded. I investigated clearly. Indeed, it was the clerk who was dishonest, taking advantage of loopholes on the pawn ticket to embezzle. I've already replaced all those with unclean hands. His wet nurse didn't even have money for medicine. I could guess how difficult their life was in the Marquis's household. If he truly was someone worth entrusting myself to, I would definitely help him plan everything. While I was lost in thought, Alexander bent down to help me remove my shoes and socks. I startled awake and immediately understood his intention. My face suddenly flushed red. Alexander's handsome face approached. I held my breath and slowly closed my eyes. Moonlight filtered through the window. Mountain flowers bloomed brilliantly. In this moment, I officially bid farewell to the past and began a new life. The next day, Alexander and I went to his mother's grave to pay respects. Wet nurse stood beside us burning paper. Alexander prayed before the memorial, saying he had married and hoped his late mother could rest in peace without worry. On the third day after the wedding, we returned to visit my parents. Father and mother, seeing my radiant face and knowing Alexander treated me well, felt somewhat reassured. On the seventh day after the wedding, Alexander had to return to the military camp. Just like before, the days in the Marquis's household weren't very peaceful, especially with Lady Nay, Lucas's mother. She always harbored hatred toward me because I had caused her son to lose face. Every 3 days minor troubles, every 5 days major incidents. She and the aunts would join forces to make things difficult for me. I didn't care. After all, their oppression only had a few methods: making me kneel in the ancestral hall, copy women's virtues, or house arrest. But I still had food and drink, people to serve me, no pain or discomfort. Before marrying into the Marquis household, I had already bought a house, planning early to wait for the right opportunity to move out and not be entangled with them. As for Lucas, I heard that since I entered the household, his emotions had been erratic, unable to focus on studying, often getting angry at the servants. My courtyard wasn't close to his, but the Marquis's household wasn't large. Walking a few steps, we'd encounter each other. Every time we met, his eyes were full of resentment and anger, as if I had betrayed him. In less than 2 months, he would have to take the imperial examination held once every 3 years. Lady Nye knew he was paying attention to me, so she hated me even more and frequently made things difficult. 1 month later, the military camp reported victory. Alexander had merit in quelling rebellion and was promoted 2 ranks to 7th rank deputy commander. In my previous life, it took 2 more years for him to be promoted to this level. Now that he and I were connected, both our fates had changed. The Marquis brought joyful news from the palace, but I was being punished by Lady Nye to kneel in the ancestral hall. How the matter started doesn't need mentioning, just that this morning I wanted to go out to check account books, but was blocked at the door by servants. Bai Ling argued back, and they even dared to push her. When this matter reached Lady Nye, I explained a few sentences, and she dumped all the blame on me, accusing me of disrespecting elders and being rebellious and unfilial. That night, when Alexander returned to receive his reward and learned about this, he flew into a rage, wanting to settle accounts with Lady Nye. He defended me like this. I was extremely grateful but still stopped him. "Husband, I want to discuss something with you." I told him my intention to separate and live independently. Alexander understood my difficult days and had long had this thought. Now that he was married, as long as the Marquis agreed, we could move to the house I had bought. He was only worried father wouldn't agree, knowing the Marquis cared about face and feared outsiders would gossip that his son had just married and already wanted to live separately. "Husband, don't worry. Leave it to me," I answered confidently. Currently in Lady Nye's eyes, I'm a thorn she wants to pull out. She wishes she could drive us out of the mansion. With such leverage, I'm not afraid the Marquis won't accept. Alexander nodded. If we separate, I only need to retrieve my mother's belongings. I won't take anything from the Marquis' household's property. That's right. Things belonging to your mother and your betrothal gifts, nothing can be missing. I asked him about a few more matters, gradually forming a plan in my heart. The next day, Alexander returned to the military camp. I took the opportunity to meet Lady Nye and frankly proposed separation. Lady Nye spoke words of reproach on the surface, but in her heart she had long wished for us to leave the Marquis' household. Yet she deliberately questioned me about what I was planning, whether I wanted to put her in an unrighteous position. I calmly replied, This daughter-in-law doesn't understand etiquette and frequently causes trouble for mother. Fortunately, mother has been tolerant, repeatedly pointing out and smoothing things over. Now the examination is approaching, and mother still has to manage everything for second uncle. If second uncle's studies are affected because of this daughter-in-law's troubles, ruining his future prospects, I really don't know how to bear it. It's better for this daughter-in-law to move out, which would also give mother peace of mind. I mentioned Lucas. How could Lady Nye not understand my meaning? Everything was just for show. If anyone blocked her son's path to the imperial examination, that person would be a sinner for all eternity. Lady Nye pretended to advise me a few sentences, but finally agreed to discuss the matter of separation with the Marquise. The Marquise certainly wasn't happy, but couldn't resist Lady Nye's persuasion and finally had to agree. I made the demand to retrieve my mother-in-law's belongings and Alexander's betrothal gifts. They didn't dare object. I had already prepared and brought a detailed list before Lady Nye. Mother, this is the list of Lady Dong's betrothal gifts that I had someone copy from General Jun Yuan's residence. The Dong family has declined now, but in those years they were favored by His Majesty. Lady Dong's grandfather was a founding minister. The marriage between the Lu and Dong families was decreed by the emperor. According to what grandmother said, when Lady Dong married, the Empress Dowager and Empress bestowed countless precious jewels that piled up like mountains. The scene that day was no less grand than a princess's wedding. The old wet nurse beside Lady Nye laughed coldly. Oh my, such a good daughter-in-law. Why bring a whole list to check? Are you afraid the first madam will keep young Master Alexander's things? I calmly replied, this daughter-in-law naturally trusts mother. It's just that much time has passed, and oversights are inevitable. Checking carefully, taking too much or too little would both be inappropriate. Mother, am I not right? The corner of Lady Nye's mouth twitched. She waved her hand saying, I cleared my throat and loudly read out each item from the list of Lady Dong's property. White silver, 8,000 taels. Gold 5,000 taels, 12 houses. 5 estates, 3,000 acres of farmland. 1 crabapple flower bed made of boxwood. 1 hat bed made of red sandalwood. 1 imperial concubine chair made of ironwood. Writing desk, zither table. Lady Nye's expression grew worse with each item. Every time I finished reading one item, servants would bring that object from storage and stick a red paper on it to mark it. I continued reading loudly. A pair of gold roe scepters inlaid with jade. A pair of blue and white porcelain plum vases. A pair of jade pieces. 2 agarwood bracelets. 6 boxwood comb sets. Lady Nye, holding the teacup, began trembling. I remained calm and continued reading. 3 white porcelain fruit plates. 1 set of jade tea service, pine and cypress, eternal youth. At this moment, a servant secretly approached Lady Nye and stuck a red paper on her teacup. Lady Nye's willow eyebrows shot up as she angrily scolded. What are you doing? The servant cowered in fear. I opened my eyes wide innocently and said, Mother, the tea set you're using was Lady Dong's gift from years ago. Lady Nye's face turned red then green, looking like she had swallowed a fly. She heavily set down the teacup, stood up angrily and said, You take your time reading. I'm tired. Mother, take your time. I respectfully bowed and watched her leave. Lady Dong's betrothal gifts were truly astonishing. Just the inventory took 3 days, and moving took 4 more days to complete. The vast Marquis' household suddenly became empty. Even the Marquis's favorite red sandalwood official's chair set in the main hall was moved away. Yunque happily told me, when we were moving things, the first madam was so angry she ground her teeth. How satisfying. I looked at the stack of land deeds, house deeds, and silver notes in my hand and calmly replied, The things moved away are just a small portion. The most valuable things are all here. Yunque's eyes widened in amazement. Heavens! So the young master actually had assets. Everyone outside thought he was empty-handed. Who would have thought his mother left such a huge fortune? After settling the matter of moving out, I wrote to inform Alexander, telling him not to worry. Since leaving the Marquis' household, I was like a bird freed from its cage, free and unrestrained, no longer having to look at anyone's face. With spring approaching, I took a day to go check the field conditions. Recently I learned that the farmland adjacent to my private fields actually belonged to Alexander's mother. For years, the Marquis' household had been secretly renting this land to farmers, handing it to a steward's surnamed son to manage. All profits from the harvest flowed into Lady Nee's pockets, not leaving Alexander a single coin. Today I came to handle this matter, learning from the previous mountain robbery experience, this time besides the maids, driver and servants, I also brought 6 strong household guards to protect the carriage. Steward's son, seeing my young age, wanted to evade and make excuses. After going back and forth with both soft and hard words several times, I finally obtained the land deed. I joyfully prepared to board the carriage when I saw a dark red horse standing beside my carriage. I suppressed my surprise and looked up at the horseback, catching sight of Lucas. He said calmly with crossed arms, "I happen to be passing by here. Sister-in-law must be heading back too, right? I heard the mountain road is difficult. Why don't I accompany you for safety?" I smiled gently. What a coincidence. What thought to myself, our return routes were completely different. What safety? I couldn't be bothered with him, and turned to take Bai Ling's hand to board the carriage. In the carriage, Yunkui asked quietly, "First madam, is second young master deliberately looking for you?" Lucas's action wasn't admirable at all. Even a simple girl like Yunkui could see it. "Don't worry about it." I closed my eyes and leaned against the carriage wall to rest. The person who once treated me coldly, now that I had married elsewhere, was deliberately approaching. I wondered what he was calculating. With only a month left until the imperial examination, he really was idle. Heaven didn't favor people's wishes. Halfway there, heavy rain suddenly poured down. The mountain road was already rough, now eroded by rainwater. The carriage couldn't move forward, horses and wheels stuck in mud, making progress difficult. Lucas rode up beside my carriage and said, "Sister-in-law, there's an abandoned temple ahead. We should take shelter from the rain there. We'll continue when it clears. This is our only option now." The group had to redirect to the temple. Though old and dilapidated, the temple fortunately didn't leak. Bai Ling and Yunkui cleaned a dry spot, spread a mat, and invited me to rest. The servants quickly built a fire. All the men retreated outside the door, leaving only me and my 2 maids inside the temple. Spring hadn't warmed up yet, the weather was still cold. I hugged a hand warmer, watching the dancing flames in a daze. "Sister-in-law." Lucas stood at the door asking, "I have something to ask. I wonder if sister-in-law could spare a moment." This person clearly wanted to cause trouble. I didn't bother pretending to be polite and refused directly. Not convenient. He acted as if he didn't hear, stepping over the threshold. Seeing this, I immediately stood up and retreated. Bai Ling and Yinki also hurriedly stood to block in front of me. Lucas laughed, his voice tinged with soreness. "I'm not a mountain bandit. Does sister-in-law need to be so defensive? Second uncle, men and women should maintain proper distance. Whatever you want to say, please say it from outside the door." I can hear clearly. My voice was cold with firmness. Lucas strode forward to face me but was blocked by Bai Ling and Yunkui. He still stared at me through them, his gaze as if wanting to burn. "Sister-in-law, I just want to hear one sentence from you. Did you abandon me because of the Shuishan matter?" I knew clearly his persistent entanglement was about this. To put it plainly, it was just his wounded pride, unable to face it. I felt I should be decisive with him, because in this life I didn't want any more entanglements with Lucas. I stepped forward in front of the 2 maids and said calmly but decisively, "I once gave second uncle my whole heart, but second uncle treated me as if I didn't exist. People all have hearts of flesh. How second uncle treated me, both second uncle and I know clearly. Second uncle likes young ladies different from me. I've awakened in time and am no longer persistent. So why must second uncle make things difficult for me?" My answer didn't satisfy Lucas. He raised his voice. "Why did you choose my elder brother? What does he have that I don't? Do you think he can surpass me just relying on his mother's betrothal gifts? In the future, what I achieve will be multiple times more than his. Did he understand human speech?" I suppressed my anger and coldly replied, "Who I marry is my choice, unrelated to second uncle. I wish second uncle finds a good match soon. You married my elder brother just to make me lose face. You deliberately took revenge on me just because of my affair with Shu Xian." He stubbornly questioned, even not hesitating to slander Alexander. "You think Alexander is an upright gentleman? He doesn't visit pleasure quarters not because he's upright, but because he has no money. Second uncle." Finally I couldn't bear it anymore and cut him off. "I understand my husband's character clearly. I don't need second uncle's reminder. Since I married him, I'll work together with him wholeheartedly. I am second uncle's sister-in-law. I hope second uncle will watch his words. Lucas trembled with anger, pointing straight at my face. You'll regret this. You'll definitely regret it. I'll never regret it. I calmly looked straight into his eyes, my gaze firm without wavering. I had already died once in my previous life. In this life, even if I chose wrong again, I absolutely wouldn't regret it. Lucas glared at me for a while, finally saying nothing more. He wiped his face, turned and rushed into the rain. His servant ran after him calling, "Second young master. Second young master." I breathed a sigh of relief, hugged the hand warmer and returned to sit on the mat. The two maids beside me were carefully cautious, not daring to breathe heavily. Today's matter must not be revealed to anyone. Hearing me say this, Bai Ling and Yunkli fearfully knelt down, immediately swearing not to reveal half a word. When the rain lightened, I ordered preparations to return home. That evening, while I was recording accounts in the study, Bai Ling rushed in to report. "First, madam. The Marquis's household sent someone saying second young master fell from his horse on the way back and was trampled. He now has a high fever and is unconscious." The brush in my hand didn't pause, continuing to write as usual. Bai Ling hesitated before finally adding, "Lady Nai instructed that first madam must go check." "I'm not a doctor." I frowned and answered decisively. Bai Ling said awkwardly, "The servant said Lady Ni wants to question you. You must go." I sighed and put down my brush. When I arrived at the Marquis's household, I learned the Marquis had entered the palace to meet the Emperor and wasn't home. A female servant led me to Lucas's courtyard. In the courtyard, maids, wet nurses, and servants were busy boiling water and preparing medicine, everyone spinning like tops. I was forced to enter Lucas's bedroom, facing the hateful gaze of Lady Nai. On the bed, Lucas had a high fever, his face flushed red, deliriously calling out, "Emily, Emily, don't go, don't hate me." I pretended not to hear, properly performing greetings. Lady Ni pretended to care about Lucas's illness. "Don't think I don't know. Lucas fell from his horse only after meeting you today." Lady Ni glared with gritted teeth, saying, "If anything happens to him, I'll make you pay with your life." She didn't even bother with pretense anymore, directly confronting me. With such unreasonable mother and son, I didn't need to be patient either. I laughed coldly. "Mother, what principle exists in this world where the younger uncle falls ill and the elder sister-in-law pays with her life? If this matter scouts outside, won't it become entertainment for everyone to mock? Mother may not value my reputation, but you can't not think of second uncle. The Shuixian matter just recently passed, the examination is approaching. Mother doesn't advise second uncle to be careful, but wants to cause more trouble." Lady Ni was so choked up by my words she couldn't breathe, needing the wet nurse to support her. She said trembling, You are a disaster." I lightly brushed my sleeve, saying pleasant words on the surface. "Mother, don't be angry. Second uncle has great fortune. Perhaps he'll be well again tomorrow." Lady Ni gritted her teeth. "You'd better pray for his safety." In my heart I laughed coldly. I didn't want revenge on him, but I also didn't have enough magnanimity to pray for his safety. Lucas had a fever all night. Lady Nai then ordered me to be kept in the courtyard. Her meaning was clear: if he didn't wake up, I shouldn't think of leaving. I endured until dawn the next day. After eating just a few bites of breakfast, Lady Nai sent someone to summon me again, saying Lucas had awakened and wanted to see me. I maintained my cold expression and had Bai Ling and Yunqi escort me to the door, where they were stopped outside. Lucas weakly leaned against his pillow. Lady Nai and a maid were caring for him, feeding him medicine. Seeing me enter, he immediately pushed away the medicine bowl. "Mother, let me say a few words to her," he whispered, his breath fragile. Lady Ni glared at me, then led the servants out of the room. Lucas reached his hand toward me. I stood 3 yards away from him, not moving another half step. "Second uncle, please have some self-respect." In my previous life after marriage, he also often called me Emily. Now hearing this address, I only felt nauseated. "Emily," he said pitifully, "I had a dream. That dream was as real as if it had actually happened." Dream? I was suspicious in my heart. I only heard him cough a few times then continue. "In the dream, you married me, but I didn't cherish you. Even while you were 10 months pregnant, I married your third sister as a concubine. The day I took her in, you had difficulty in childbirth and died." Like thunder striking my ears, I couldn't control my whole body from trembling. What was he saying? How did he know about this? Could he also remember the previous life? Emily, in the dream I saw you stop breathing. The child who hadn't been born also died. I regretted it so much I couldn't bear it. I held you, calling your name continuously, but you never woke up again. He called out loudly several times, then coughed violently again. He really remembered. I only felt heaven and earth spinning, darkness before my eyes. I had to grip the 8 immortals table beside me to barely stay standing. Lucas cried, his voice hoarse. Only now do I understand why you hate me. I don't blame you for not marrying me. I wronged you. Emily, I was wrong. I know I was wrong. Can you forgive me? I clenched my fists tightly, nails digging deep into flesh. Only pain could keep me clear-headed. These belated apologies weren't worth grass. Now even if he knelt down begging, crying pitifully, it couldn't compensate for the injuries I suffered in my previous life. What crime did my unborn child commit? What crime did my elderly father, who fell ill from anger because of me, commit? What crime did I commit? These crocodile tears and few words of, I was wrong. Are they worth my forgiveness? I'm not someone without backbone like that. Looking at him with tears and snot streaming down, I turned my back and pinched my leg hard. The room only echoed with his sobbing. After a long while, I finally calmed down, took several deep breaths, swallowing back the worthless tears. Turning around, I showed a faint smile. Second uncle, are you delirious? How can matters in dreams be real? Second uncle is just confused from the high fever. Quickly take your medicine and rest well. No, that wasn't a dream. That really happened. He tried to get out of bed to embrace me. I immediately dodged, glaring in warning. Second uncle, don't force me to call people in. Lucas looked at me in despair, finally sitting back on the bed helplessly, mumbling. After you died, elder brother even beat me up, scolding me as heartless and unworthy of marrying you. My heart stirred slightly. So in my previous life, after I passed away, such things still happened. Lucas held his head, blaming himself. I harmed you. I don't know how to make amends, but now everything is too late. Spilled water is hard to recover. Knowing late is fine. I took the opportunity to say, Second uncle, I'm now your sister-in-law. Let's not dwell on the past anymore. Let everything pass. Each of us should live our own lives. He suddenly raised his head. So you also remember. You also know those things weren't dreams. I only replied indifferently. Today's words from second uncle, I'll consider as delirious ramblings from illness. After leaving this room, I won't remember them anymore. I also hope second uncle won't mention them again in the future. Elder brother and I still have half our lives to live. I don't want unpleasant words reaching my husband's ears. Lucas looked at me, his eyes red as blood, filled with anger. Before he could open his mouth, I calmly took my leave. Second uncle, take care. Just as I turned around, I heard his oath-like voice from behind. Emily, I won't give up. I will definitely pass the examinations and win you back. I coldly smiled and turned to reply. Even if I died once more, I still wouldn't marry you. As soon as I left the room, sounds of smashing things came from inside. Lady Nye heard and rushed over, angrily questioning. What did you say to him? Mother, I take my leave. I gently bowed and walked straight past her without looking back. In my previous life, Lucas was playful and neglected his studies. I had to tutor him day and night, playing the villain to force him to study hard. Only then did he reluctantly pass in this life. I didn't know if he could pass based on his own abilities, but I worried he would, as he said, continue to entangle with me endlessly. If Lucas really disturbed my life, I would follow Alexander to the military camp and hide for a year and a half. Let's see if he has that patience. A dog can't stop eating feces. I didn't believe he would change his nature because of one dream. Over a month later, the imperial examination results were announced. Lucas's name wasn't on the list. Though I shouldn't rejoice in others' failures, I truly breathed a sigh of relief. What made me even more satisfied was what happened next. Due to his failure in the examination, Lucas drowned his sorrows in wine and while drunk, assaulted his female cousin, Miss Tao. In my previous life I had met Lady Tao, plain looking with an arrogant and domineering personality, without any real talent. Years ago when I married Lucas, she even showed jealousy toward me. It seemed she had long harbored feelings for Lucas. Though Lord Tao's official position wasn't high, it was a clean and reputable family. Moreover, the two families were relatives. With this incident, the Tao family naturally wouldn't suffer the loss. Such a shameful matter. Lady Nai had no other choice but to arrange for Lady Tao to become Lucas's legitimate wife. At the wedding banquet, I also attended. On his wedding day, Lucas's face was gloomy, his eyes dark, constantly glancing toward me with resentment. I smiled brightly, raising my wine cup from afar to congratulate him, thanking the Tao family's cousin for helping me resolve this heart trouble. My mood cheerful, I drank several more cups. Not long after the wedding, news continuously came from the Marquis' household. I heard Lady Tao was indeed not to be trifled with. Upon entering, she replaced all the maids in Lucas's courtyard. The new maids were either ugly or barrel-wasted. Occasionally when Lucas snuck out to get pleasure quarters, she would report directly to Lady Nai. The Marquis and Lady Ni were already furious about Lucas's examination failure. They immediately ordered him to cut ties with his playboy friends, forbidding him from leaving the mansion without permission, even confiscating his monthly allowance. Lucas was so angry he went crazy, arguing endlessly with Lady Tao all day. His relationship with his parents became like fire and water. Time flew by, spring came again. I had been married to Alexander for almost a year. Since his last promotion, Alexander hadn't returned home once. During that time, he was promoted another rank to front guard commandant. On the small new year, Alexander finally came home. He entered the door, with a weathered face. I served him as he bathed and changed clothes. Not seeing Alexander for half a year, he had become even more steady and dignified. When I helped him remove his undergarments, I saw his back covered with scars. Some new ones had just scabbed over, still reddish. Alexander soaked in the bathtub. I reached out to touch the scars on his back, my eyes couldn't help but heat up. I knew how hard he had worked these past years. Outside, no one believed marrying him was the right choice. They constantly mocked and insinuated. He originally wasn't someone who coveted fame and fortune. Yet now to bring me dignity, time after time he charged into danger, trading his life for 3 promotions within a year. Alexander held my hand and said softly, "My lady, make me a peace amulet, would you?" I choked up in response, "Yes, someday I'll go to 3 Pure Temple to request another peace talisman for you." He tilted his head to kiss my temple gently. I suddenly remembered what Lucas had said. In my previous life, after I died, Alexander had beaten him up. Could it be that in my previous life, Alexander also had feelings for me? If that was truly so, heaven hadn't treated me poorly. In my previous life, I blindly loved the wrong person, trading my life for it. In this life, I could be with someone who truly treated me sincerely and lived together. I wrapped my arms around his broad chest from behind. His gaze at me became even more passionate. Halfway through bathing, he carried me to the inner chamber. On the second day of New Year, we visited my parents' home. I prepared generous gifts for each family member. My elder brother and sister-in-law also came home for the holiday. The whole family gathered warmly for the first meal of the year. Currently, Alexander's official position wasn't particularly high or low, but he was just over 20. If his promotions didn't decrease, his future prospects would be immeasurable. My mother initially wasn't very satisfied with this son-in-law, but now seeing him promoted and treating me with utmost care, she felt somewhat reassured. During the feast, I intentionally observed Luna. Initially I thought she was infatuated with Lucas and would surely, like in the previous life, willingly become a concubine by any means to marry into the Lu family, but she showed no movement. Instead, this time when visiting home, she kept secretly stealing glances at Alexander. After looking, she would lower her head and smile shyly. I had seen through her character. So Luna didn't truly love Lucas, she just wanted to compete with me. I patiently said nothing, wanting to see if she would resort to old tricks and whether Alexander would be bewitched by her like his brother. On the 5th day of New Year, Alexander set off again. I saw him to the door. He was reluctant to leave, embracing me over and over before finally spurring his horse away from home. A month later, I was diagnosed as pregnant. Perhaps it happened during New Year, I had good news. Because of my difficult childbirth in the previous life, I always carried fear about giving birth. So after confirming, I immediately closed my doors and didn't go out. Every few days I invited the doctor to check my pulse. When my mother heard the news, she also took it very seriously, immediately sending 4 experienced midwives to attend me. She also assigned several trustworthy maids to handle all matters big and small in the household. Fortunately, over the past 2 years I had taken good care of my health. During pregnancy I had almost no morning sickness. Except for some worry and insomnia in the early days, everything else was healthy. I wrote to inform Alexander about my pregnancy, telling him to take care of his health and not worry about me. After the pregnancy stabilized, I continued managing the household accounts. It was just that my body was heavy and I couldn't personally go out to supervise. In less than 2 months, it would be time to give birth. Great news came from the frontier. When Alexander was defending the border, he had defeated a group of foreign enemies. Among the captives were rebel remnants. Alexander successfully persuaded them to surrender, led a pursuit for thousands of miles, and uprooted the hidden rebel faction, eliminating a major threat to the court. The emperor was greatly pleased, breaking precedent to promote him 3 ranks consecutively, appointing him as 5th rank General Dinuan, bestowing crimson court robes and a silver jade belt. When the good news arrived, the entire capital rejoiced. The army hadn't returned yet, but rewards from the palace had already been delivered. Friends and acquaintances came to congratulate, crowding the entire courtyard. Since I was pregnant and Alexander hadn't returned, I declined all visitors, only accepting gifts, and then registering them in a book to report everything to the court. The Marquis's household also sent people to congratulate. I accepted our family's gifts without pressure, but also sent return gifts. By the end of the 8th month, the victorious army returned. Alexander, after the long and arduous journey, arrived at the capital. He first had to enter the palace to report, then could return home. It happened to be mid-autumn festival, he had just been promoted, and I was near giving birth, truly 3 joys arriving at once. Alexander and I discussed and decided to hold a moon-viewing banquet at our residence on mid-autumn night, inviting relatives from both the Liu and Zhang families. Alexander didn't want me to work hard, so he specially invited my mother and sister-in-law to help, and also asked the maids and servants to handle arrangements. That day, male and female guests sat in separate courtyards. The banquet tables had crab, chicken, duck, fish, fruits and vegetables in abundance. We also invited a theater troupe to perform, making it extremely lively. We sent invitations to the Marquis's household. The Marquis, his wife, and relatives from the 3rd branch all came. Only Lucas claimed illness and didn't attend. During the feast, I became the object of continuous praise from the ladies. Everyone surrounded me toasting. I could only use tea instead of wine to return the toasts. My mother and Lady Ni sat at the same table. After several cups of wine plus all the praise, Mother spoke even more cheerfully. I saw early on that my son-in-law had a promising future. It's strange, the ancients said good wine needs no bush. Previously he was just buried, that's all. When I first married Alexander, Mother had been mocked by the officials' wives and couldn't hold her head high. Now she could laugh happily with her head held high. The aunts sitting nearby continuously echoed, "Emily truly has good fortune and keen eyes, marrying a husband who is both capable and loving. It really makes others envious." That's right, Emily also has the physiognomy to prosper her husband and benefit her children. In just over a year, she's helped her husband rise 4 ranks consecutively. Emily and her husband are truly talented and beautiful, a perfect match. Everyone raised their cups again, wanting to toast. I maintained my smile, returning courtesies to each person. Lady Ni was unusually quiet today. Though she kept a smile on her face, her eyes showed no joy. Her own son failed the examination, the daughter-in-law she married wasn't satisfactory, and the household was in chaos compared to our situation. The contrast was stark. While everyone continued toasting and laughing, Bai Ling stepped in mightily and whispered in my ear. "Third miss over there asked Du Juan to pass a message. She has lured the general outside." I showed no emotion, glancing toward Luna's seat. She had been gone for quite a while, using the excuse of changing clothes. I stood up and left the feast. Bai Ling draped a cloak over my shoulders and led the way to the bamboo grove in the adjacent courtyard. Behind the artificial mountain, Luna and Du Juan had their backs to me, secretly peeking ahead. The cicada catches the spider while the sparrow watches from behind. I thought to myself, I wanted to see what Luna could pull off, and whether Alexander would fall for the trap. A few breaths later, footsteps came from ahead. Alexander in dark blue robes slowly walked over with his attendant Kong Yan. My heart involuntarily raced, feeling somewhat tense. Luna perfectly timed an ouch, and tumbled out from behind the artificial mountain, rushing straight toward Alexander. But he had extraordinary martial skills. Seeing the figure, he quickly dodged aside. Luna missed and couldn't stop in time, hitting the blue stone ground with a thud. The sound was startling. It seemed she fell quite hard. I involuntarily winced. On the other side, seeing it was a woman, Alexander immediately stepped back several paces. Kang Yan drew his staff from his back, pointing straight at Luna, shouting loudly, "You bold woman! How dare you ambush our general?" With that, he swung his staff to strike. Duan panicked, running out to shield her mistress, begging, "General, spare her. This is the third miss of our household." While speaking, she helped Luna up. At this point, Luna's face was bruised purple, her hair disheveled. Hearing this, Alexander's brows furrowed even tighter. "Third miss, why are you here?" Luna's eyes brimmed with tears, stammering without being able to speak. Alexander held up the letter in his hand, asking sternly, "Did you write this letter? Do you know forging military reports is a serious crime?" I don't know," Luna answered tremblingly, her voice full of ambiguity. "I just happened to be passing by." Kang Yan stepped forward, sniffed the letter, then sniffed her, and declared decisively, "General, she definitely wrote it. The fragrance on the letter is exactly the same as on this third miss." Luna had no way to defend herself. Alexander tore up the letter and said coldly, "Out of respect that you're my wife's half-sister from a different mother, and this is your first offense, I'll let it pass this time. If there's a next time, don't blame me for not considering family ties." With that, he angrily turned and left, leaving Luna stamping her feet and crying behind. Having watched a good show, I left satisfied. Returning to the banquet table, I pretended nothing had happened. Looking at the Liu family's female members, almost all had left. Mother leaned close and whispered, "Your mother-in-law put on such a long face, as if our family owed her tens of thousands of taels of silver. As soon as you left the table, she asked to leave." After she left, the Liu family relatives didn't dare linger either. I just smiled without speaking. As for Luna, it took her quite a while to return. When she appeared with her face covered in bruises, her nose and chin scraped by gravel, her miserable appearance immediately caused the surrounding aunts to gather in concern. Luna only said she had drunk too much and unfortunately fell while changing clothes. A sister-in-law worriedly said, "Falling so badly, we must call a doctor. A young lady's face can't be left with scars." Everyone discussed back and forth, eventually leading to the topic of Luna's marriage. Her mother, concubine Zhang, was originally a maid in my father's room. When my mother was pregnant with me, she volunteered herself and was later elevated to concubine status. She always wanted my parents to find Luna a good marriage, but was too picky. Poor scholars she looked down upon, wealthy merchants she also didn't approve of. She only wanted to marry into a high-ranking household. Mother had introduced several matches, but concubine Zhang rejected them all with various excuses. Finally, mother got angry and ignored them. Now Luna was only half a year from turning 18 and still had no marriage arrangement. No wonder she was anxious. An aunt turned to me smiling, "Emily, why don't you ask your husband to keep an eye out in the military for any young generals who aren't married yet, to matchmake for Luna?" I said, "Certainly," with my mouth, but laughed secretly in my heart. The young unmarried generals were all minor officials, probably not matching Luna's ambition to transform into a phoenix. Only after Alexander was promoted to 5th rank did she deign to look at him differently. I then asked, "Sister, I don't know what type of person you like." Luna covered her bruised face with a fan and said softly, "Someone like brother-in-law would be really good." She truly had no shame. Before I could speak, my sister-in-law laughed coldly and interjected, "Third miss has quite the appetite. When your brother-in-law married second sister, he was just a minor 9th rank military instructor. Now thanks to second sister, he's been promoted 4 ranks consecutively, rare in the entire capital. If you want to find such a husband, I'm afraid even the best connected matchmaker in the capital wouldn't dare promise." Sister-in-law had always been grateful to me and didn't like Luna and her mother. Now in front of relatives, she didn't hesitate to expose her. Luna's whole face turned red, stammering, "I just said it casually." "Sister-in-law, why be so harsh?" Sister-in-law held her wine cup, half joking. Sister asked sincerely, "But you treat it as a joke." Luna was speechless. I smiled to mediate. "I'll ask my husband to keep an eye out. There are many 9th rank military officers in the army who aren't married yet." I deliberately spoke off topic, making Luna awkward. She stammered for a while and finally shut her mouth. That evening, Alexander cleverly mentioned Luna's matter to me. Though he was a military general, he wasn't stupid at all. How could Luna's intentions escape his notice? I thought he would try to cover it up, but unexpectedly he was so frank. I teased with a smile. Husband is now rising like a kite in the wind, making all the butterflies rush over. Alexander frowned. This half-sister's methods are too despicable. I'm afraid she'll cause bigger trouble in the future. I then told him about my intention to matchmake for Luna. He showed great disgust for such shameless women. How dare I matchmake? Wouldn't that harm others? It seemed Alexander really looked down on Luna's fake ladylike pretense. I laughed and knocked on his forehead. I was just casually responding. Who knows if the people we introduce, she might not even like them. Let's not mention her anymore. My lady, you're tired today. Rest quickly. Alexander blew out the lamp and pulled me onto the bed. 10 months of pregnancy, just waiting for one day of delivery. On the day of labor, I was in such pain I thought I would die and come back to life. The physical pain was still bearable, but the fear in my heart clung and wouldn't let go. Memories of the tragic scene before my death in the previous life appeared clearly. I was only afraid I would faint and never wake up again. Alexander stood outside the door, wanting to rush in many times but was stopped each time. I bit down hard on the soft wood in my mouth, hands gripping the bedsheets tightly. I had found someone who truly loved me. This life was still long, I couldn't just leave like this. Finally, the clear cry of a newborn rang out. The first child of Alexander and me was born. The midwife happily said, "Congratulations, first madam. It's a fair, chubby little young master." I was too exhausted to speak. Looking at the wrinkled face of the baby, I was moved to tears. Alexander pushed open the door and knelt by the bed, gripping my hand tightly. His eyes were red, too emotional to speak. Through all the bitterness and pain, finally in this life I hadn't failed myself. 15 years later, Alexander had established countless military achievements, rising to second-rank general protector of the nation, surpassing even his maternal grandfather's military rank. Later, when the new emperor ascended the throne, sympathizing that he had rushed around battlefields for many years and also to reclaim military power, he was recalled to the capital. During that time, I bore him 3 daughters and 1 son, with many grandchildren. As for Luna, she was arbitrarily married off by her mother, aged Marquis who had lost his wife. My parents couldn't stop it and had to let it be. After marriage, she fought daily with the daughters-in-law and sisters-in-law in that household. She gave birth to a son, but before she could rejoice, the old Marquis discovered the child wasn't his but belonged to a secondary son. Still, to cover up the scandal, the old Marquis adopted the child as his own son, but from then on treated her coldly. Using the excuse that she needed to recuperate, he sent her to live in a villa outside the city. Lucas and Lady Tao were married 5 years without children. Lady Ni then stuffed chambermaids and concubines into his room. But as soon as they got pregnant, Lady Tao schemed to cause miscarriages. The mother-in-law and daughter-in-law in the Marquis household fought noisily all day long. Lady Tao refused to lose, even bringing beautiful concubines to the Marquis. The Marquis was infatuated with the young, beautiful concubines. Lady Ni was so angry she fell ill and was bedridden. The Marquis' household was in complete chaos. Finally, Lucas used various excuses to divorce Lady Tao, escaping the painful marriage. He spent all day playing around, boasting that in this life he couldn't marry the one he loved, so he'd rather live alone. After 30, he still had no heir. The Marquis and Lady Ni, worried about continuing the family line, forced him to marry a daughter from a minor official's family as his legitimate wife. Unexpectedly, due to his previous dissolute lifestyle, he had contracted venereal disease. He sought treatment everywhere with great difficulty, and only in the 6th year did they have a daughter. The other concubines also had no more children. Lucas's path in the imperial examinations wasn't smooth either. He only passed at age 30, then was assigned as a 7th rank position in a local area. Despite Lady Ni using many connections multiple times, she couldn't help him return to the capital. When Marquis Wengson passed away, because Lucas's line had few descendants, the title was ultimately transferred to Alexander. But these were all matters for later. Second chances are precious gifts that demand wisdom and courage. Emily's rebirth taught her that true love isn't found in superficial charm or social status, but in genuine character and mutual respect. Her previous life's tragedy, dying in childbirth while her husband celebrated with her sister, became her greatest teacher. rather than seeking revenge. She chose to invest in herself, building financial independence and selecting a partner based on integrity rather than appearance. Alexander, though initially overlooked by society, proved that real worth lies in one's actions and dedication. Their story reminds us that breaking free from toxic patterns requires both recognizing our past mistakes and having the courage to choose differently, even when that choice seems unconventional to others. The story ends here for now. If it touched your heart or left you thinking, I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments. Please like,